everyone, in this video today I'm just going to give a short explanation of the rebound effect. Now the rebound effect is, something that can occur if you suppress tics, try to suppress hyperactivity or mask autism traits. And rebounds obviously occur in many different ways depending on the condition, but some people with Tourette Syndrome might suppress their tics in public or when around others. This can be done consciously by choice or sometimes even subconsciously. People may not realise that they're suppressing, but the problem is that suppression can be harmful. Not only is it uncomfortable, but it does often lead to a rebound of other symptoms later on. And this means that when somebody goes, home or into a safe environment, the tics may explode, sometimes leading to a tic attack, but the tics can come out a lot more severe, and this is something that my parents saw very often when I used to suppress my tics and then come home. So, I think that in a rebound, sometimes the tics can be so severe that they lead to injuries, and they can just make home life miserable. So it can help to build somebody's confidence to be able to tic loud and proud in public, and it's easier said than done, especially with people with high levels of anxiety. But by allowing people to know that, the tics aren't their fault, and allowing people to learn more about the condition and learning how to advocate for themselves, it can sometimes help with that. And I found that, reading stuff about my conditions really helped, because then I saw that, first of all, this definitely isn't my fault at all, and there's no reason for me to hide it because I haven't done anything wrong, and it's just that my brain is misfiring signals. That can really help. And, advocating for yourself. Some people are allowed to let their tics out more in public. They find it easier if they sort of have a pocket-sized card that explains what Tourette's or tics are. I used to have one of these. You can get them online, many places. Some places you print them out, some places you can order them and get and buy them, but sometimes having a card can help. You can even make your own. I know people who have made their own before, but that can sort of give somebody the confidence to tic in public and know that if anybody does ask questions, then you can just show them that, and it also raises awareness as you do it. It's kind of like just by being yourself, you're raising awareness of the condition. I also think that watching documentaries on Tourette's and stuff seemed to help me as well. I remember when I was younger, I say younger, I was 14, but still, I was watching a documentary about Tourette's, and it did really boost my confidence to see other people, adults with the condition, ticking loud and proud and being empowered, and also just, not letting it hold them back. That's quite empowering and can allow somebody to let their tics out and be confident in who they are without the need to hide their tics, because the tics are involuntary. There's no need to hide them, and suppressing something at the detriment to your own well-being isn't really recommended. I often say that when other people make comments or stare, I think staring is a natural reaction when you hear someone ticking in public, or see someone doing something that may be seen in a certain way if they didn't know what a tic was. But when people stare, it can sometimes be ignored, because then you realise that they're probably just curious. But if it's a nasty look, I have unfortunately got those before, then you could either just brush it off, or you could maybe show them a card and educate the person, or you could just remember that how other people react, whether that's a nasty look or a comment, it reflects their own misunderstanding and their own ignorance towards the condition. It's never anything you've done wrong because you have a condition, you can't help this. You're allowed to tic freely because that's what's best for your well-being, and that's what is important. But when other people react in a negative way, that's something that they can control. They chose to react in that way, so then it's an opportunity to educate people, or just remember that what other people think of you doesn't really mean anything about you, because you know yourself best and you know that this isn't your fault. Other symptoms can occur in a rebound from suppressing tics as well. So rage attacks is a big one. Sometimes if you've come home from a day of suppressing tics, the urge builds up to such an extent that it's so strong that it feels like your whole body is filled with pressure and going to burst, and it's incredibly uncomfortable and can lead to irritability, which then explodes as a rage attack. And trust me, a rage attack is so much worse than the tics, so I'd rather tic and just let it out when it needs to come out, rather than have it all explode later on to that extent. Some people also, when they suppress, some people can suppress for very long periods of time, but then that can actually lead to an increase in OCD and anxiety symptoms, therefore ticking is usually a lot more, easier to manage than that. And I understand that, sometimes it can be anxiety provoking to let your tics out. Sometimes people, need a timeout or something when they're in school to be able to let their tics out if they don't feel confident. But, there's nothing, there's nothing to be ashamed of when having a condition. I used to be very ashamed of my OCD and tics, and I used to hide it. Now, thankfully, I don't, because I've come to that level of self-acceptance and empowerment. But it can take a while. But I think it's just important to know that this is a condition. There are others like you. Meeting others at support groups can really help as well, seeing that you're not alone and there's no reason to hide it because there's nothing wrong with who you are. Interestingly, as well, as I was saying, other symptoms can have a sort of rebound effect as well. I found with the hyperactivity related to my pandas and patterns, if I try to sit still when my body is being quite hyperactive, then it only makes me even more hyperactive later on. So in that sense, it also helps to focus in general as well. But in that sense, if you need to move about, then do it. Don't, like some people, for example, in school, they might have a timeout where they can just go walk about. They might go and run around at break time to let off some extra energy. Some people might have fidget tools. Some people, just do what you have to do to function. I know some people who, when they're eating meals, they might have to get up and walk about for a minute. And if people work best when, standing up or something, then they may have to do that. It's all about doing what works for you, because when you have that hyperactivity rebound, it is quite interesting, because I'll be like, well, maybe if I try and be calm, then it might help it, but then the hyperactivity does just come out more later on, and then it's like my whole body is agitated and can't stop moving. So it's better just to move when you feel the need to move and stuff like that. Also, interestingly, in autism as well, some people are known to mask their autism traits, especially females on the spectrum, and this is why a lot of people might say to people, oh, you don't look autistic, because first of all, autism doesn't have a look anyway, but also some people might just kind of sometimes unconsciously learnt these social cues, but again, they're not actually being their natural self. And this can mean that during the school day, people seem completely fine, but they are still quite anxious and they're holding it all together. And I have a really good friend, she has a mental health awareness account on Instagram that I will link down below, but she always describes it as, it's like having a fizzy Coke bottle, and then throughout the day you're shaking it, and then once you get home the lid goes off and it all explodes. So in a way, autism can also have rebounds. If you're holding in all the anxiety from the school day and stuff, that means that people might have meltdowns when they get home, because there's so much sensory stimulation and stress and stuff going on in the school environment, so many people, that can be really stressful for some people, but they don't necessarily show it in the environment that they're in at the time. This kind of shows that, just because you don't see that somebody's experiencing symptoms, it doesn't mean there isn't an issue, because sometimes people in public might seem completely fine. You might think, oh, I don't really know what they're talking about. But then once they get home, there can be an explosion of symptoms, which can be really, really difficult to deal with. So it's important to understand the contrast between different environments. And also, if you're a parent or somebody who lives with someone, just know it's not your fault obviously it's never your fault if a person experiences more symptoms when they're with you. It just means that they feel safer with you at the time. OCD symptoms can sometimes be suppressed in a way as well, because in the school day or wherever the person is, they may just try to hold it all together. People might not let their compulsions out. I know for me, when I was younger, I didn't really let any symptoms out in primary school. So people might, hold in their symptoms until the anxiety builds up so much that at home they just feel that their time is just filled with compulsions, completely unable to do anything else. And another thing as well is doctors might not always see the extent of the conditions, because in a doctor's appointment, people do often suppress symptoms without realising. Like, I remember being in my psychiatrist's office when I was younger, and as soon as the psychiatrist left the room, I would tic, and my dad's like, why are you just letting it out now? I'm like, I don't even know. It's just, I would unconsciously suppress in front of the doctors. So that's why it's important for some people to have videos to actually show the symptoms that someone is experiencing, because otherwise the doctors, unfortunately, might not take it seriously, or they just may not really see what you're talking about and might not understand. So it's important to sometimes take videos to a doctor's appointment. I know a lot of parents are told they just save this behaviour for you. It's not behaviour, it's a symptom, but that's, you know, what it's sometimes referred to. But it's actually just that they feel safe with you to let their symptoms out, whether that be tics, hyperactivity, OCD, meltdowns, sensory overload, that sort of thing, because it needs to be let out somewhere, but the individual will only let it out where they feel most safe. Sometimes people might suppress things such as autism traits or hyperactivity or anything like that because people might try to hold themselves to neurotypical standards. But again, that can be quite harmful to our well-being. I'm definitely guilty of this. Even in a pandas flare, I was trying to hold myself to neurotypical standards. It doesn't work. But, you know, trying to appear neurotypical when you're not can cause problems because you're not really letting your body need to express what it does need to express. Therefore, it's just building up and creating tension and more issues later on. So I think that by having that sort of self-compassion, letting yourself, you know, stim or do what you need to do to function can be really helpful. And, you know, to do that, it can help to build your own confidence and talk to others with the same experiences and know that, you know, you're allowed to be who you are. There's never any shame in it. You're allowed to express your symptoms and do what's best for you, because that can definitely help your own well-being. And also I like to think of it like by being yourself, you're kind of raising awareness. Like, I'm not saying that we're like walking awareness things, but I mean, just by being yourself, you're showing that it's okay to be authentic, and if people ask, then you can explain the condition, therefore you're sharing information on it and kind of raising awareness in that way as well. So I hope that this video sort of shows what the rebound effect is, why people may hold in their symptoms and traits, and also might give people confidence to be themselves a little bit more and allow the symptoms to come out when they need to come out. Thank you for watching. Bye!